welcome to another episode of A Junior, a Senior, and I. Today I'm joined by two people that have quite a lot of diverse experiences, Martin and Kostas, and they are here to talk to us about what should happen or how is it to start a new role in tech. Without further ado, let's meet them. Martin, could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less, please?
I'm Martin. I've been making software and helping people make software and also convincing people not to make software for the last 20 or 25 years. I'm getting better at the not making software part. No, mostly as a developer or tech lead. And I'm also a freelance, which means I'm starting jobs on a relatively frequent basis.
Cool. Thank you very much. What about you, Kostas?
Hello, everybody. I'm Kostas, obviously. I've been in tech for the last 9 years now. I actually decided to switch 9 years ago. I used to live in Greece. I moved to Belgium. I attended the Levagon bootcamp, a significant bootcamp back then. I think you, Pablo, have attended it as well. Martin used to be one of our teachers in 2016. I was either lucky or skilled enough to get a job quite fast, not even 2 months after I completed the bootcamp. And since then, I've been writing software, mostly in smaller companies in Belgium. And for the last year and a half, I've been working in a larger organization in Greece remotely.
I guess the first question kind of writes itself. What should one consider when taking on a new role? What is the first order of business when taking on a new role for you guys?
It's funny because, well, so the audience know we got the question in advance. So I had to think a bit because I've three answers which are a bit of a contradiction, which is very me. So the first one is that it's really important to listen and observe. You come in a new place. This place existed before you. And something important to say is that except the dire situation, it's also working. You may disagree with the way it's working. You may think it's working in a stupid way. You may think it's weird, but it survived until then. And it's something important to understand because most of the time when I arrive and find this is really weird, there is an explanation. And it's interesting to leave you the time to get it. That's one part that I really like. On the other side, and again, that's come a bit with the freelance package, I have to prove myself quite fast. Well, I'll think I have to do so. That's the way I put my own pressure on the job. And that means something which I like to say. It's like, in those poker or similar games, you have chips like that you have on your side. And generally speaking, one of my first order of business is to win chips with other team members. That is making myself useful to them, to the company, but also on a personal level. What can I do to make your work a bit easier or funner, whatever it is? Because I feel it's a good way to get started. And generally, it's an investment with the idea that one day I'll have an opinion, and that day it's better. If I contributed something already as part of the way the company is working, it makes it a bit easier to be heard a bit later on. To close on this is that I like that part. I like the idea to say, first thing first, I'm here. This company is working and existing. What can I do without touching anything that hurts anyone? I don't really care about who it helps, but and it's generally a good way to start in a team for me.
What would you say is the first order of business slash the things you take into consideration on your end when starting a new role, Costas?
First of all, I would like to say that I feel very, how can I say it? I don't know. I feel very nice with myself that hearing this thing from Martin, it's one of the things that I also wanted to mention, and he has a lot of experience, and that's a very good sign, at least for me personally. So yeah, considering a new role in tech, the first thing that you have to count in, of course, because I'm not working as a freelancer. I have to mention that I'm working as an employee, so all my gigs are mostly in the same company. And I've only worked in 3 companies in my career of 9 years. 6 of them are in the same company in Belgium. But there are some stuff that are fundamentals. So whenever you start a new role, the first thing you have to key in, even in tech, it's the fact that you have to wait for people. You have to become familiar with people. You have to become familiar with people processes before diving in whatever you have to do regarding tech. So that would be the first thing that I would consider. I would first make sure to become familiar with the people around me, first of all in my level, and also the people that I'm working with the most, depending on the company structure. That could be my manager, that could be product people, that could be QA. I would probably start with people like my manager and product, for example. I would first make sure to introduce myself to these people, to get to know them, to understand how they're thinking, even though this thing is taking time, but at least it would give me a good hint of jumping in fast. Because whenever I start a new role, for example, it was quite recent for me, it was a year and a half ago, my first goal was to just understand how things work in order to get to know the processes and start contributing as fast as possible. I think the rest, you figure it out in along the way, but the first thing you have to do is just get the grip of the processes, understand how things work even slightly, and start contributing.
I'm gonna tie myself there to the start contributing idea you both mentioned. And what I'm feeling is like you both want to start the new role with a win, right? Like, okay, this is what I can bring to the table, and now we can start discussing, right? Are there things that you notice that you do that facilitate that quote unquote first win?
I have an answer, but the funny part is that it's the other way around. Is that when I here I'm changing seat, when I welcome someone to the team, I like to give them some kind of well prepared feature to do, a small one, but something that's not an exercise, something that we really need, something that can and should go to production, because that gives them a win. And on my own side, assuming I'm not welcomed that way, which is unusual because I tend to arrive in chaotic environment, part of the job, I guess, is that I generally look for something like that. Also, a small thing that can benefit end user. Maybe it's a bug that has been rattling the team and not being solved because it's not on the main priority. Again, we've decided that the company survive until then, which means that normally when I arrive, it shouldn't be anything I need to do to save the company from crumbling. That doesn't make sense. Which means I can tackle something which is probably on no one's board because they have more important things to do. Because by the time I'm well in the team, then well, I'll be on the main priority too. That's okay. Then in the meantime, I can probably solve a small bug, realize that the developer setup is a bit unnerving for someone, and maybe I can fix it. I don't know. I fixed CIs at some point, continuous environment, because it's useful for everyone. That one is a good one because generally it improves developer experience. And even if I always say the benefit, what we are here to help the end user, let's be honest, if your first act help your fellow developer, it's a good start because they're the people you're living with like day to day. So I'm just looking for really about how can I help. To be honest, again, this is made a bit easier because I'm generally very senior. Well, it just times are passing, these years, things are moving around, the planet is moving. Uh, which means, yeah, I can look around and say, okay, what's there? If there is a bug tracker, is there a couple of things there I can tackle? Again, with the same idea, let's contribute first, look around, and in a couple of weeks, I'll have a better idea about why things work the way they do. And maybe at the time, if I have some ships on my side, I also have a situation where I can be heard. I don't want to arrive and say, this is not the way we should work. We should work that way. That's stupid. That's extremely like, how do you say that? Like it's thinking yourself as really the savior of whatever. And it's stupid and it gives you people on the wrong hand. So again, it's okay. It arrived to them with that situation, even if some of them of this system is inefficient. That's okay. It get there. Let's start improving. Let's start helping, and then we'll see. So it's really that. If it's small feature, that's good. If it's again, I think the developer experience is is a cool one, generally speaking.
What about you, Kostas? Is there something that you notice you've used in the past to get that first couple of wins and get yourself liked by your colleagues in the tech team or within the rest of the company?
Usually, I don't know. I like the fact that I've I've joined companies like at least the current gig and the one before, and the first thing that was assigned to me was a bug. In the second case, we I also delivered it with some tests, so I had an understanding of, let's say, the API on that specific bug, the context around that bug, and I started to become familiar, and I'm a believer of that. I like the fact that when people join, Instead of handing them out a feature, especially a critical one, thank God I haven't experienced that, and I wouldn't want to experience that. It means that probably the ship is sinking. But I don't know. I'm pro against assigning people and giving them the opportunity to get an easy win, because I believe in this kind of easy wins, and usually a small bug, and especially not a critical one. Also, documenting some code, like writing tests. By documenting, I mean writing some tests is a very solid first task. First of all, it helps the new hire understand, for example, how we're writing tests, how an API works, but at the same time contribute, give value, like Martin said, to the existing team, because having more tests is always a big W. Let's be honest with it. And yeah, I don't know. I think that these two make a lot of sense for someone starting a new role, no matter what the level is. I think that for all levels, this makes a lot of sense.
No, I agree with you, and what you're saying about the bugs resonates with me. For me, like in my head, there is a hierarchy of how to onboard someone, and I'm taking as Martin, taking the other side of the fence in terms of welcoming someone on the team. For me, the hierarchy is clear. Number one, some kind of pair or software teaming. You're working with someone on the team, and so you're exposed to a lot of concepts with someone that can explain them to you on the spot and talk to you about the trade-offs that have been made. Hunting for bugs, it will bring you wherever on the code base, and so you will have to figure out stuff. Or number three would be work on optimizing slow parts of the app, because again, it will bring you to the slowest part, which might not be the most used, but it's random, and by virtue of being random will expose you to different parts of the code base.
I think that jumping in a new code base and working on a bug, or not on a bug, like working on a slow query, for example, or a very slow response for whatever reason, I think is trickier. It requires a high level of experience for someone to be able to pull this through quite fast. So for Martin, who's a freelancer and with 25 years of experience, yes, but for someone coming from 5 or 6 years of experience, I think it's a bit too much. There are some special cases, and I know there are some people who are very, very, very skilled. But for most people out there, from what I've seen, and because I've participated in interviews as the interviewee, and also welcome people in a company, I have never felt like that. I've never seen someone who would be able to tackle an issue like that in his first week. Nevertheless, first month, it's very tricky.
To be fair, this is colored by my experience because someone joining our company asked for that explicitly recently. So I thought, oh yeah, that's gonna expose you to different parts of the app, right?
I'm going to take the answer on my side because the fun part is that I do agree with you. I think performance is really tricky to get started properly because there is so many ways to shoot yourself in the feet also by like, yeah, what I like with the idea of the bug is generally that I try to take something which is already well identified, at least on the business side, because then I can probably narrow in a small part and telling Costa that actually agree that performance may not be something I will pick on my, like, on my quick wins, contrary to, for example, a non-critical bug. I think the main part that I like is that I think that I like to combine a very big picture approach. The first week, I want to meet with a lot of people. I want to understand why are we doing this. But I don't want to do only that. And I want to, at the same time, to use this extremely narrow approach, which is, can I solve something? However small, how can I help with whatever is there? And I like this combination because the big picture is needed, because at some point, most of what I'm selling as a developer is actually mostly unrelated to my capacity to write code, is my capacity to understand the business. But this will need time. And in the middle of those meetings, taking a couple of small bugs or something like that, yeah, I like to do those both at the same time. I don't want to be only a talker initially. And I think that, like, again, I've done that on the other side, including with junior people, is that I like a developer when they join the team. I try to set up something so that they can put something in production on day one because it's fulfilling like, and it's cool. And it's so And if I'm coming in, yeah, that come with the benefit of the seniority. I don't really expect to someone to prepare it for me, but I'll try to carve it out. I'll try to there. But indeed, performance, I'm not sure. The first thing, as an example, is that maybe the team is not equipped already to profile performance properly. And this means getting stuff all over the place from local to staging to production, and not a bug change, but a code change, but maybe something much major. So yeah, I would be cautious. No, but to be clear, it was also because I wanted to answer the question saying, like, yeah, years of experience doesn't do everything. It's still, if you like, it
It,
helps, but it doesn't
it,
solve
it
everything.
does quite a lot, though. It does quite a lot, usually.
Yes, and when I was mentioning the performance, it was colored by recent experience because we welcomed someone at the company recently, and this person asked actually, okay, I see there is some performance issues. Can I go look? And my thinking is, you probably won't solve it. I'm not expecting you to solve it. If you do it, great, amazing. But if you don't, it will force you to ask questions, and it's more in that sense of it will force the curiosity, right? Like the same thing if you have a well-defined bug, even better. But if it's just this is not working, well, now you have to talk to support. Now you have to talk to, and then you're getting those connections, right? That's the idea I have.
Exactly. You start introducing yourself across the company.
Maybe one more on that one is that because it's a specific situation, but I've been several times in a company where I'm actually the first developer, which means that this kind of strategy doesn't work because there isn't a team. There is a team, but there is not a team with a developer. Then what I love to come is that having a conversation about what anything could be next. And what I generally do there, and that I cannot write code at the time, but I can do mockups. I love doing mockups to say, will that solve your problem? Come in with something which you can show pretty quickly on the discussion again, because it's the same idea, is that let's come with not really solution, but let's come with concrete proposal. Solving code is obviously better when there is code to solve, but it's the idea, like, let's start contributing. And when people ask me about the process or whatever, I say, okay, I can have an opinion of that, but leave me time. Maybe in 2 weeks or something like that, only 4 weeks. For now, my opinion doesn't really make sense because I don't know enough of the context to have any interesting one. Let's put it that way.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And there are a lot of companies who they don't seem to be thinking like that. There are a lot of companies usually they don't. Yeah, there's a waiting period until you start contributing. There's in a lot of places I've heard about a lot of places that there are people working there for a couple of weeks and they haven't touched any code at all, and that's to me at least it feels quite absurd. They are bombarded with tons of documentation on the APIs themselves to even MR templates and all these processes, and what they have to do, for example, it takes them a long time, and in the end being bombarded with this documentation offers nothing, in my opinion. Like actually contributing and touching things and going across the flow and meeting people and understanding how these things work and are interconnected with each other, I think it's the best way for someone to start a new role.
I think it's really jumping on that. I think that's very interesting because the fun part, and I had this experience once. The people ask me about for opinions, and the thing is, I need some time to get opinions. What I can do today is probably solving a problem that's there. Like I need much less starting time to code than I need to start providing opinion about pretty much anything, because I need to look for a while. And instead, as you say, Costa, it looks like some companies are trying to put that on the
Yeah,
other way. Like,
the other way, I think the larger an organization is, the more likely is for this thing to
I
happen.
think, Costas, that in their context does matter in the sense that hiring, especially a junior developer, is risky in the business side. And saying you're going to look at the documentation and the architecture of how if we do a form, this is how we do it, memorize it, etc. It's a cheap way to feel safe, not to be safe, but to feel safe for the companies. And so if you put them through 2 weeks of that, it's easy to convince yourself, okay, now at least the first deployment won't be a mistake. I'm not saying they're right, but I think that's the place where that comes from.
I get what you want to say. Yeah, makes sense from business perspective, but software is a craft. In a way, is a craft, and the magic of being a craftsman or craft lady is that you get to figure out things yourself. Is that you make things work yourself, and in a way, you create things your own way. There's always a kind of freedom in software, even in very strict companies and in very strict software teams. There's always a sense of freedom. You can do some stuff in your own way, and that's what I like. And that's why I have never worked in a large organization myself. Like I like this kind of freedom to exist. I like to have it in my day-to-day tasks. Like I want to complete something. If there is like a small room for freedom to do it, things my way. Something that I read recently, or a style of developing, for example, that I read last year or I practiced somewhere else. I want to have that because I think that it will help everyone in the end. If there's a good idea coming into software in the software that you're working in, at least it will help everyone benefit for it sooner or later. Yeah, that's what I like. That's why like being very strict with onboarding processes. I'm definitely not the biggest fan.
No, but it's interesting, Kostas, because that jumped a lot into something that I love the way it was framed to me when let's stop saying we want the culture fit, we want the culture add. I want you to bring the team, like, when you add a person to the team, it's a different team. And it's what I want when hiring someone. I don't want to be just more of the same or just more
Yeah,
firepower with doing exactly the same. What's the point? I mean, I just hired a new colleague and the first thing I told him is that I'll show you the way we work until now, but now we're working with you. So some of that will change, and that's okay, or even it's welcomed. I hope that we are not ending working the same with three of us, that we work with the two of us, because with one more people, hopefully that will make sense that we update. And so that's exactly the cap I like when you framed it that, and I want to be able to contribute something which is also me. I'm not just a coding firepower, like like you're something more than that.
yeah, we are people first of all. We are not only software engineers. Like we are also people. We bring different things, different values, different energy, different ideas. Maybe bad, maybe good. We'll see. We'll figure it out.
I think I have my quote for this episode, but we will not end it here. But we are people after all. I think will be the, the quote for this episode. I'm gonna tether myself to this new team idea. I want to bring me as well. And every time there is something new, it comes with challenges and opportunities. What are for you the challenges and opportunities you have and the team has when starting a new role?
Yeah. One thing which is really great and people don't realize that on the team dynamic side, as a new person, you get a full reset. The way you worked with your team in your previous company is gold. And I'm not saying I'm not bringing some experience there, but you get the opportunity for a reset. Some of the way I've worked before may work here, some may not. And in a weird way, that's okay. That's not like I'm a totally new person, but I'll probably also be perceived differently. As an example, I'm often joking that I've been seen both as a drastic orthodox regarding my code approach and as a complete cowboy in different contexts. And I don't think I changed a lot. I think it says something about the teams, most that it says something about me. And this reset part, again, some people might find that not exactly nice, but I'm probably because of freelance or because I'm a freelance because of that. I like it. I can realize, what this team work totally in a totally different way than my previous team. And I know to say that's cool. That's a way to, get maybe a new way of working. And so I really like this part about the reset. It's both a challenge and an opportunity because it means, okay, do I need to adapt? Do I need to adapt the team? But it's something that I really find good. The other part, which is more the most common one, is that, well, new kind of problem, new kind of technical issue, new kind of, and here we're getting, and maybe we'll get that, I think, you have a question after about should we do that? And there is a part of that about the answer there. So it's really, I think, this idea about on the relationship and the way you work, it's a reset. The technical side, normally you take your own experience with you. Hopefully you apply it there. But the team dynamics can be extremely different. And in that way, it's always a new job or a new opportunity. And it's something I like because it's building up my experience. Really about there is so many ways to make a team work. That's, and I like that. It doesn't need to work the same way as my previous team, even if my previous team was super good. It can be super good in its own way. And I can fit there, which is something I really like. So that's already something I see as an opportunity of joining.
What about you, Costa?
Fundamentally agree once again with Martin, but I want to be more specific because depends on we are all in tech, but depends on the position you have in tech and depends on the seniority. So challenges can vary. If you're a junior person, for example, the biggest challenge you have is that how fast am I going to be able to contribute? How good am I going to be? How possible would it be for me? Will it be for me to get to know the other people, to at least reach their standards as a software engineer? The more senior you become, it changes. How fast you want to contribute a thing of value. This usually would be in a form of a feature, for example. How good will it be? Other stuff that I'm usually thinking, are the other people up to my coding standards? Because, like I said earlier, software is a craft. In a way, it's a form of art. We are all usually collaborating in teams to create a product, a digital product, but that doesn't mean that we all have the same standards. We are not writing the same kind of code. We don't have the same expectations from our code. For example, there are a lot of people who care about the function of a code piece. If it works, has no bugs, it's good. Myself, for example, I think in a way my coding standards are a bit higher. I want it to be fully functioning, but at the same time, I want it to look nice. I want it to be easy to read. I want it to be easy to maintain. I want it to be easy to test, not only for myself, but mostly because I'm working with others. So coming back to the question, the challenges can vary. Like depends on the role and depends on the seniority. But for me, the biggest challenge as a software engineer, and since you're not a solo software engineer, is making sure that you are collaborating efficiently with people, that there's communication, and that's why I don't like there. I've met developers in my professional life who were excellent, but they were very bad with people, and as a result, that had consequences to the team as well. The morale was lower, even though things were working smoothly. The morale was low. People couldn't express themselves in a way. There were people that were intimidated by that behavior, or by people who are not actually communicative, and to be honest, they don't have to be, but at least they have to put in some effort and try to come closer with the people they're working with. So yeah, overall, there are a lot of challenges. The biggest, if you're not a solo software engineer, is to collaborate with people.
I see, yeah, collaborating with new people and joining an existing dynamic. I see how that could be a challenge. I would like to pick up something that Martin said about it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself. Are there things that you brought in your different roles? I'm thinking, for example, there is a concept that a way of working, I'm going to say, that I discovered at the first company I worked at the time we called it the King's Bishop. And it was basically various iterations, but basically someone was available for bugs on a semi-regular and semi-rotational basis. And that concept has followed me throughout my career, taking different names. It went to single point of contact dev. Then it became Nico because a colleague that was called Nico was doing it, and so we found a backronym to match it.
I thought it was called a shark for some reason.
A shark?
A shark, yes, or something like that. We had it in a previous company. They used to call it the shark or something. I
Maybe
find it very weird.
it's a role that exists, but it's more that this practice. Ha- I discovered it at the first company and has followed me throughout the roles by me introducing it when we were facing similar problems. Right? Has that happened to you or similar things?
I think not. Funnily enough, I remember doing a small talk a couple of years ago with something which was like everything I thought as things that were always true in software ended up being false, like or at best situational. And I think the only thing which I have is okay. Now I'm going to use big word, but I think the idea is good. Is to have a north star, something that is okay. What's guiding my action? What's guiding my action is getting outcome from the end user for the end user, and from there I'm doing whatever brings me there. And this whatever is extremely broad and it involves software mostly because I'm better on software than other stuff. So it's better for me to make software to help user. Some people may do something else, but it depends a lot. And it's really something that, especially those last years, I appreciated working in smaller environment because you get in contact with your end user faster. But so if I think about more technical stuff, in a funny way, the more I progress, the less rules my teams have and the less I'm putting in. I like the idea of having working agreement of some equivalent in the team saying that's what we apply. Fact is, I'm in a team of three right now and we don't have any written down. And I guess we'll have at some point. But so, no, I don't have much, except again this point about how are we helping someone by doing what we are doing right now. And if the answer is not clear, let's remove the hands from the keyboard and do something to clarify that, talk to people, whatever. But I won't play that on day one. I'll assume the person that asking me to solve something knows what they're doing ago. Again, same idea. I need to observe first. Something unrelated to your question, but I sort of think I need to like put my arm on the window because that's you speak about people that say that maybe good developers but they bad with people. I'm not sure that's possible. What I mean by that is I don't care how good a developer on the technical side someone is, if they are unable or unwilling to communicate or play with the team, I'm not sure they will get the outcome. And if they don't get the outcome, I don't care about how good they are. It's something I've heard it a bit too much, especially in big companies. Something such as, yeah, it's a bit of a job, but he's very good at what he does. I don't care. There is no green pass to be shitty with people. Like, I know how to frame that, and I don't know if this was exactly what you meant, but like, there is something I've developed quite a very epidemic reaction to it.
The sad thing about it is that a lot of people who I agree. Like, first thing that I want to say is that I agree. I don't believe that only being a good developer is sufficient, especially when you're not by yourself. But sadly, even though I think that after COVID, especially, I have the feeling that this thing is changing, at least the culture around it, because before that, I had the impression that it was stronger. That he's a good developer. Let's promote him to manager. Let's promote him to staff engineer. Let's do this kind of things. And in the end, all people below him were very we're not they're not satisfied, let's say that. And usually this comes with some kind of impact, and the impact involves all people on the team. It has been changing, I have to say that, but in many cases I think it's still a thing, sadly.
Hmm.
It's still a thing, and it's a challenge for everyone. I think it's a challenge for business people, but it's also for a challenge for other people in the engineering teams.
There is a principle, I don't remember the name of the principle, that basically says the same you said, but it's basically your boss is by definition incompetent because people raise to their level of incompetence. So if you're a good engineer, you get to
Principle of
manager.
Peter.
If you're bad at manager, you will
Peter
stay
principle.
there. If you're good at manager, then you will become C level. If you're bad at it, and so you always reach the point where you're not good at, right?
That's the reason I'm demoting myself when I can. But it's an unusual move.
But I'm gonna segue here because this idea of people getting promoted internally does bring me to a part of the subject that I want to discuss, because we've talked a lot about changing teams, changing companies. But I think there is a space for changing roles within the same team and within the same company. Have you had the opportunity of a change in that direction?
I never had this opportunity. No, like usually in the companies that I've worked in the last 8 9 years were kind of like there were not a lot of levels. Usually there were a few business people and then the engineering team. and we would split some roles between us. Someone would be more focused on the back end, maybe doing some stock updates. Other people would be better at doing DevOps, better at working with the client applications. I never had that, but coming back to the role, changing roles in general, because in tech it's also another thing that is trending. A lot of people are moving around, not only internally, but they also move around. They change companies every couple of years or even less. That used to be a thing. I think during COVID, definitely, I remember people were just jumping boat every 6 months. And I don't want to say I'm against. I don't want to judge people. I understand why it's happening. It's a very easy way to get raises. But coming back to the fact that software is a craft, you are actually not proficient enough in any kind of software in only 6 months to say, okay, I had enough. It's time for me to go. In order to understand how things work and in order to understand the consequences of decisions that you've taken as an engineer, maybe you refactor an API, maybe you fixed a performance issue or supposedly fixed it a couple of months ago. In 6 months' time, you will never have this, or even a year, you will never have this opportunity to understand what went wrong or what went well. Either way, you get a raise, but in the long term, you might be losing. It's conceptual, but in order to build experience, and especially if you're a software engineer that is either a junior or a senior with less than 10 years of experience, I don't think that you get a lot by changing roles often. That would only make sense if you joined a gig and things went downhill, not because of you. Maybe business went bankrupt. People started leaving for whatever reason. You never know. This kind of makes sense, but like checking on people's LinkedIn pages or CVs and looking at a profile of a person working for 6 years in 4 or 5 companies, that for me is a lot. Technically, the years of experience could even rank him as a senior developer. But in the end, is he or is she?
I have pretty much the almost the opposite view. Like, well, again, 6 months is not reasonable, like except for a very dedicated mission. But I'll be blunt, between two people with 10 years of experience, one with 10 years of the same company and one with 5 times 2 years, I know what I'm picking because I'm generally looking for people with capacity to, like, I don't know, evolve or tackle new problems or so. And no, obviously I'm speaking from my own experience and I'm selling a bit my own gig doing that. So I mean, not, don't be totally, totally unbiased there, but there is something you gain by saying different tech, different teams, different way of working, different size of companies that help you to come out from the this is good and this is bad to a this is a good solution for that specific team. Or this is something that I loved in my previous team and I will never bring here because for some reason it's just not the way this team is. And where I'm a bit in a conundrum there is that I like the idea of people growing the company for the benefit of both. Most of the time, I think people are staying too long on company for their own career goals. It's not a rule. It's not written in the sky for anything. And I'm not speaking about leaving after 3 months here, obviously. But a lot of experience that I have is because I can come to a team and saying, I've seen half a dozen or actually a dozen environments. And it helps because it gives perspective. Now, where I can join Kostas fully is some people are very good at being there before the problem and leaving before paying the consequence. And that's the other side, which is I want people that are living with the choice they made, including the bad one. I'm living with a back of bad choice I made, bad or like things that we are paying the consequence. And I want people, generally, I said, I want people that they've seen production. The time that this nice design you pull up is actually making everything go down and not, I don't know, and the phone are ringing the support team. If there is a support team, I'm picking the phone myself. And it's an important part of the job, maintaining, living with that. Still, again, I'm also that as an experience. I started my career in a social security sector. I was a team lead there, among, I don't know, 10 other team leads. Some of the people are still there. I can do the job again tomorrow if needed. Those guys will not survive a week in my job today. But I'm speaking about 20 years. I'm not speaking about five. But like, because I've seen a lot of other things. And that gives me insight, also insight that is bankable on the market.
You're not wrong. There's always a middle ground. There's always a middle ground, right? I understand, and I've met people older than me who are in the same software position. For example, usually people administrating databases and stuff like that, especially in banking software, and they're there for 20 years, 25 plus years, and most likely they're working on these legacy systems all their life. They've missed all the funny things, all the fun things that we're working with, all the new things that we get to play, the new APIs, new JavaScript frameworks, for example, if you're into web. Yeah, but I'm more into the middle ground. I consider myself to be like I'm aspirational. Like I'm taking care of making myself like advancing my skills, try to be on the latest trends around tech and especially software engineering. But yeah, I understand the fact that there can be dangers when you are somewhere for many years and things happen in your life and you just get used to the place. You don't care much anymore about getting better. You don't care anymore about growing up, growing your skills, and you just stay there forever. I'd like to think that people they're taking care of these things, like they understand that they need to grow. They need to always be following trends in a way, not closely, of course, because that's madness, but at least staying up to date.
I would say that there is a lot of context to unpack there, in the sense that if you've remained in Google for 30 years, probably your role within the company has changed a lot and you have learned a lot and you have kept growing,
And
right?
you've probably seen tons of products, some successful and other failed.
On the other hand, if you've stayed at the same accounting firm that's a pop and mom shop and like code has not changed since whenever and you've only done bug fixing for specific clients sometimes, yeah, probably your experiences there are quote unquote less or less diverse or less interesting. But there is also something to be said about what is your ambition, right? Is your ambition to become the best software developer you can be? Then probably there is a mix on I'm staying long enough but not too long. Is your ambition finding the best place I can work at? Hey, if you found it, stay there. You're good. You won, quote unquote won. So I think there is a lot of context to unpack there that will be personal for each of us, right?
Yeah, context matters. If you wanna, like, I really, it's a line that I'm like saying as much as I can in situations that both affect professional and personal life. Context matters. You can stay somewhere for many years. Let's say, for example, Google could be Apple, these very large companies, and you've probably seen pretty much everything around software. In a way or not, you've been involved with it. Maybe not directly, but maybe chatting with someone at the cafeteria or meeting someone or going to a meeting or doing all these things. Yes, you can stay there for many years. That will be fine. Probably you are top notch anyways. But when the context changes and you are in a smaller company or in a kind of organization that is not always up to date, is using legacy systems. You were hired as a COBOL developer, for example, and you're there since early 2000s or late 90s or something like that. You're probably a dinosaur right now. It's not the same. You'll probably struggle a lot to fit in somewhere else.
I was there 3,000 years ago. Like, I'm starting putting the Elrond meme once in a while when working with you and a colleague.
But if you're a couple developer today, you're at a company, you're probably making quite decent money and not having to worry about your job. Probably. So again, it depends on what the ambition is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Until you
People,
do.
people. We're so different, even in the same field. We're so different, and context again is different.
Yeah, exactly. I see. I'm glancing at the time, and I see that we're close to the allotted time of today. Yes, Costas, you.
I wanted to add something else. Just the last thing. or one of the last things is it's funny that in a way I'm agreeing with Martin, but at the same time we're having a small debate, and that perfectly matches context. I'm an employee. Martin is a
Of course.
freelancer. It's two different perspectives.
It's also, and I'm going to be cynical here, the fact that I've learned to have a cautious relationship with companies. I work with a lot of great people and great companies, and don't make me wrong. At the end of the game, your own career is in your own hands. Don't put it in anyone else, including your employer,
Yeah, that's
because
true.
this may work in a lot of different ways which are unrelated to your capacity to deliver good software.
Of course. And again, context will matter there. For example, I'm thinking of myself. I was just a father quite recently. Now it's not the time to try to advance my career. Now it's the time to, for me, for my situation, my personality, it's the time of being a bit calm and seeing how things go, right? Someone else might have the thing of, oh, I'm a new dad, now I have to provide more. Let's apply at Facebook, at Google, at Apple, whatever, right? I like to end the episodes usually with a question that's quite similar, which is if you were talking to a junior person or a more junior person that's starting a new role, what would you tell them?
On my side, probably it's always the optimize for learning, especially someone new, because at the end you're building on something, and the only thing that you will take with you is yourself. And again, I don't want to see it be seen as cynical, although it's just the way it is, and like try to build into let's make sure that the job make money, but also make you better at the job or at another one. Doesn't matter, but like it's important that you learn because it's what will capitalize in the end.
What I would say, there are a lot of things that I have in mind. I remember a few years ago when I was still teaching at Le Wagon in Brussels, and people were asking me towards the last few weeks of the boot camp is what to do next. For me, it will always be try to find a way to look professional, to make yourself professional in a way of writing code and selling yourself as well. That could be either try to find a new job quickly, try to get your hands into actual software that it's being delivered to people, that it brings value to people, that it also pays your salary, or do that as a freelancer. But try to do it, as people say, commercially. Try to get paid from it. You like it on one way, it's very fun, and tech is very fun, and that is also one of the things that I would say. But at the same time, we all have to live somehow, right? So make sure to start working in order to have the freedom and the experience to get better at it, to enjoy it more, to bring more ideas into the teams that you're working with or the software that you are writing. Become better at it. That's it. Try to become actually better at it, not just by, I don't know, contributing to open source or doing your side projects, because your side projects most likely will never be production grade. Let's be honest. If they're not sold to people, if they don't solve real problems, if they don't bring any value, they will never be considered production grade.
They are toys because they are toys.
Yeah, they're toys, exactly.
Thank you very much, Kostas. You're a quote machine.
Thank
We're
you.
humans after all. Context matters. Get better at it. I think that can summarize the episode quite well. Thank you very much to both of you for joining me.
Thank you as well. Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Same. And a very nuanced into in conversation. I love them. Thanks a lot.